Hello. Hello.
Where you
Welcome
been?
to another episode of Tudor. I hardly know her.
Really exciting episode, guys.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about the marmalade of the Tudor time.
Marmalade. No, I apologize, listeners. I'm very, very sleepy today, so I'm gonna try and pull a pretty exciting one out of my ass.
Oh, God, please don't. I think you should talk to a doctor if you're doing that.
That's a little gross. No, I'm gonna try and keep myself high energy, but for some reason I'm super sleepy today. I don't know what it is. I barely even worked.
I don't even do anything for a living.
Yeah, for the listeners, my job is I sit around and sometimes I sell video games and movies to people. That's about it. That's one of my jobs anyway.
So Garrett works 2 jobs and yet claims he doesn't work.
That's true. I'm so tired because I don't work. Anyway, I am your host, Garrett, and joining me, as always, is the real host of the show, Emily. I don't know why I'm still saying I'm the host. I should probably stop doing that.
No, it's fine. It's a thing now.
Okay.
It's canon.
It's canonical.
It is. You are host.
There's an alternate universe where you are the host of the show, and I'm the one who actually knows everything about the Tudors.
I feel like if we switch this, you'd have to just teach me about video games.
Oh man, you don't want to do that podcast. That you would be mentally broken.
Garrett, you listen to me talk about the Tudors all the time.
I know, and it's a wonder why I'm still doing this.
Aw. All right,
Because I
and
like
with
it.
that, this is our last episode. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. This episode is the one where Garrett and Emily get into a huge frickin' fight.
No, we're just kidding, guys.
No, we love each other.
Eh.
Emily and I, we ride together, we die together, bad boys for life. And also, the baddest boy of them all, our producer, Jeffrey.
Hey guys, I'm also very tired today. But that's
No
because my
worries.
job
Joe.
involves selling toys to people all day.
God, our lives are so rough.
It's hard selling video games and toys to people all day.
It really is.
I spent my day baking.
Oh, God. Join the workforce, Emily. Anyway, no, Emily is a very hard worker. Not only because she actually has a real big people job, she also has to put the show together.
I do.
I was about to say, she's the one that has to do like all the real hard work of actually learning all this stuff to talk about on this podcast.
That's true.
I mean, coming up with witty things to say is fun too, and that's a little full of myself. I shouldn't say that I'm that
You don't
witty.
come up with that. You don't plan them ahead, though. Like, I think it takes a lot to be able to just think of this stuff off the top of your head.
Oh, thanks.
So,
So, oh boy, Emily, what are we talking about today?
today we're talking about Elizabeth of York, who was Henry VIII's mother.
Ooh, so we're going back to like individual people episodes. We're not doing generalities.
We'll continue to do them, but I just thought it was time for a person because, you know, our Facebook contest is kicking butt, and it's all because of my favorite person, Jane Boleyn. So I figured it'd be appropriate to do a person episode.
A profile piece.
It is a profile
All right.
piece.
And yes, if you are listening to this episode concurrently, that contest is still going on.
When's the official end date for that, Emily?
April 26th. Is that Wednesday? Yes, April 26th.
And that'll probably be Wednesday, like that evening, most
Yeah.
likely, right?
And once again, what is the contest?
All you have
fill
to
in
do
people
is
who may have skipped last episode.
all you have to do is go onto our Facebook page and find that post about the contest and tell me who your favorite Tudor historical figure is, and tell me why.
All right.
So,
Simple stuff. So let's get into talking about the lady
yes.
whose name I already forgot. Elizabeth of York.
Good job.
Man,
I
I'm
mean,
good.
We've talked about this before. You really only have to guess between 3 names.
That's true.
So,
Is it Mary?
yes,
Okay. No, wait, I think it was Mary.
Mary.
Or was it Mary?
It might have been Mary.
I would love to go
yes.
time traveling just to go into a room back then and just scream out like the term Mary and just see like a third of the room all face me.
How many Marys have we got in this room anyway?
Yo.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by Marys. So, Elizabeth of York.
Wait. I gotta ask. Every episode, do we have a Henry fact?
Yeah, but it's not like a crazy fact. It's just kind of a sweet fact.
Aw.
But we'll get to that
Little
point.
sweet boy Henry.
Sweet boy Henry. Before he went loco. So Elizabeth Woodville is kind of overshadowed a bit because she was not a dramatic queen like her mother or her 6 daughters-in-law. So she was born, she's the daughter of a king, the sister of a king, the niece of a king, the wife of a king, and the mother of a king. I almost said the wife of a queen. Thanks, Jeff.
Scandalous.
Yeah, she was really ahead of her time. No, she's not.
So she was part of royalty her whole freaking life.
Yeah. So her mother was Elizabeth Woodville, and she's the one who the Queen of Hearts card is based off of. I think I might have said Elizabeth of York before, but they're both named Elizabeth, so sorry.
So you're kind of right.
Elizabeth was related to Edward IV, and she was the Queen of Hearts, so I'm right. Her father was King Edward IV, and he was the one who died from a cold. And that's like the whole Cousins War that we went over that one time, which was a good time. So she kind of had that typical thing that happened to princesses where they went through like a billion marriage matches and whatnot. When she was 3 years old, she was betrothed to George Neville, and he was the son of a man called the Kingmaker. That was his nickname. In that time
was he
period,
just
too.
like the guy that like kind of fixed up the kings and like made the princes kingly or ready to be king?
No, he was really good at checkers. Garrett, fuck's sake, that was a good joke, guys. Why didn't you laugh?
I'm sorry, that was supposed to be a joke.
What?
I liked it, Emily.
You
It was
didn't
funny.
laugh. Ugh. I made somebody laugh last week.
I'm so sorry, Emily.
You should be. No, the Kingmaker was he was a non-royal who did a really good job of convincing secondary cousins that they should be king and then making them king. So quick breakdown. He made sure that the Yorks got on the throne initially, and then there were 3 brothers, Edward, George, and Richard. Edward was on the throne, but then George was a whiny little bitch. He was the one who drowned himself. Who was drowned in wine, and so the
What a way to
Kingmaker BFF'd George, and so that was treasonous. So after that treasonous thing, the betrothal with that guy's son was broken off. I'm super specific. And then, and if you want to learn more, go listen to our Plantagenets episode, The Cousins War.
So it seems like this guy was just a real shit stirrer. Like he really liked to cause trouble.
Yeah, the Kingmaker really was. He tried to make sure he had yes. Yeah, essentially. He was. So he was betrothed to George. She was betrothed to George Neville. That was broken off quickly. When she was 9, she was betrothed to the Dauphin of France, which is like the next the next king. So the first prince. I found out that there's a thing called the Order of the Garter, and like the men who were presented it were literally given these fancy ass garters to wear on their calves. And I'd known about that, but apparently there's a Lady of the Garter, and that was founded by Edward III in 1348, and she was named a Lady of the Garter when she was 11. I don't know what you have to do to be a Lady of the Garter, but it's cool.
You gotta catch one.
A garter. You go to a wedding.
Say that.
You go to a wedding, and somebody chucks a garter out there, and then you're a Lady of the Garter. There's a whole ceremony. Okay. So during the Wars of the Roses, after her father died of his cold, her brother Edward should have been king. So he was named Edward V, and he was staying with some relatives in Ludlow, but it was his mother's family that was keeping him. Richard III was like, I'm the protector, so I should be in charge of Edward. So poor Edward got kidnapped. Kidnapped. And
Is this the prequel?
we've talked about this one before, but it is, yeah. And his name is Edward too.
Oh my gosh.
All the poor Edward.
I think it's just
don't
people
get
named Ed.
Edward. We're gonna take that Ed. Somebody had a plan and they wrote it down and they were just like, I found this plan about kidnapping a guy named Edward.
Kidnapped Edward edition. Phantom Menace.
What could go wrong?
Kidnapped episode 4.
The king returns only to get kidnapped again.
So, okay, Elizabeth Woodville, Elizabeth of York's mother, took her remaining daughters and her daughters and her remaining son into Westminster Abbey, which was a palace back then, because she wanted to keep them safe and she didn't trust Richard because, Richard just kidnapped her child. So, they were in Westminster claiming sanctuary for a little while. Richard III was like, hey, your son, who's also named Richard, should be with his brother, Edward. I'm keeping them in the tower to be safe. It's fine. You should send him out. So she did. And then when both the princes were in the tower, Richard III was like, hey, I want to be king. So he became Richard III. And in June, Elizabeth's parents' marriage was declared invalid. So she was named a bastard. So there goes all her prospects.
And why was that again?
So it was Richard III said that Edward, his brother, did a con where he tried to get women into bed by saying, oh, I'm going to marry you. We're going to do it secretly because I'm so in love with you. But it's so hard for me to escape the pressures of public life, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to get a priest and we'll bring witnesses and we'll get married and then we can bang.
Real Vegas style wedding.
And that is how Elizabeth Woodville married Edward. He kind of wooed her and she wasn't going to marry him. We'll talk about Elizabeth Woodville in another episode. She's awesome. But Richard said that Edward was actually married to another woman named Eleanor. So
Rigby?
Yes. Eleanor Rigby was picking up the rice in a church where her wedding had been. And then Richard III showed up and he was like, hey, glad to see you again.
All the lonely people.
Where did they all come from?
Question. So it seems like this is all like a bunch of like scandalous like today this would be like tabloid shit, right?
Oh yeah, but if you gossiped about it, your head was put in a cage. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're right. We just did that episode. I was gonna ask if there were secret like gossip rags going around back in the day.
Yeah, CW would be all over this show if it was happening now.
Oh my God, TMZ.
Yeah, it was super scandalous. So, and it was just so much drama. So, she was declared a bastard and all that stuff.
Would stuff of this regularly get out to like the peasantry where like they would know about like these like scandalous things happening up
really
in the court, or did that just what's
They'd
that?
find out about it, but it wouldn't. Sometimes it wouldn't be for months. Like it wasn't easy. Like the carrier pigeons were just not flying too well in those days. So they didn't really. I don't think they got much information very quickly. It was a trickle down thing based on travel. So like in the winter, they probably got less information.
Okay.
So Richard III was like, "Hey, Edward wasn't really married to Elizabeth Woodville. All of their children are bastards." And then he goes, "Oh, but that would actually mean I'm the king. What a crazy random happenstance." So he became king, and then things got gross.
Uh-oh.
Really gross.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, like what kind of gross?
Like incest.
Oh,
no.
Those crazy royal people.
It was almost Habsburgian incest. Okay, for those who don't know, the Habsburgs were inbreeding so much, and they had so many genetic problems from it that it's got a name. It's like the Habsburg lip is when you've got a giant. It's for the royal family who had a giant jutting out lower lip. It's like how Queen Victoria's grandchildren all married each other, so they were all hemophiliacs. It's called the royal disease. It was like that.
No, it's because they're all
Look up
werewolves.
the
They're all
Habsburg
werewolves.
jaw right now.
You have the Habsburg jaw.
Ooh.
Do you want to know what the Habsburg jaw is?
He looks like Lord Farquaad from Shrek.
Which one are you looking up?
I just typed in the Habsburg jaw, and it's like the third picture.
Does it say?
You'll know it when you see it.
Does it say which one it is? Stop Snapchatting me.
No, let me see.
Hold on, no, I'm gonna find it.
He's got gorgeous hair, though.
Oh, that's Charles. Yeah, that's the okay. So the Habsburg jaw.
All right, and here's the picture of Jay Leno.
It was he's probably. Oh my god. So the Habsburg jaw is a huge spade-like chin, and Charles II in the 1700s, or maybe it was late 1600s, his lower jaw jutted out so much he had a tongue that was too large for his mouth and a giant lower lip, and he just drooled all the time like a basset hound. So,
no.
incest for the wincest.
Oh, gross.
Oh.
These portraits look like there's no way.
I know. And it's just because
Like
they wouldn't
this-
stop breeding with each other. They were like, yeah, they were pretty funky. So Marie Antoinette was a
Funky.
Habsburg,
Here's a
by
guy
the
with
way.
a Habsburg jaw. He kind of looks like Rick James. Anyway, continue.
So, okay, Richard III got gross. The two princes in the tower, Richard and Edward, the children who should have been king, they went missing. And at the time, there were a lot,
Missing.
right. There was a lot of times where, I mean, people still accuse Richard III of murdering them.
They
Be
were never found, right?
There were bodies found. There were 2 skeletons found sometime in the last... Shit if I know. There were bodies found, but it wasn't until like at least 100 years later.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if they... I think the bodies just haven't been genetically tested. Like, you have to get Queen Elizabeth II's permission to genetically test them, and they're not being done. So... This isn't really related to Elizabeth, but it's still a really interesting fact. So a lot of people assumed Richard III had them murdered, but Elizabeth Woodville came out of sanctuary in Westminster. So that kind of supports that. Like, if she thought this man was murdering her children, she wouldn't have left. Another theory is that the Tudors either knew who murdered the children or knew what happened to the children. But this is relevant because... Okay, this is a little bit relevant, and I'll get to that in a minute. I know this is all complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Richard III became king, but Henry Tudor was like, I don't care. I want the crown. So Henry Tudor's mother and Elizabeth of York's mother were like, hey, let's become BFFs and put Henry on the throne, and he has to marry Elizabeth. So that was the uniting of the two fighting sides of the family, which is really gross if you think about it. So, however, while they were in court and before Henry Tudor defeated Richard III, there were rumors that Richard III was going to marry his niece Elizabeth.
Ugh.
And there are rumors that Elizabeth was crazy in love with Richard.
Ugh.
And part of the rumors come from this, the rumors were alive were present at the time, and Richard had to publicly deny it because even then they were like, "Look, we're not Spaniards. We're not gonna Habsburgian our."
We have standards. We're not Spaniards.
Pretty much. So
Ooh, I think we found the maybe a episode title that might offend
That'll-
our huge Spanish listening
Yeah.
base.
No, we don't. We're not upset with you. We're upset with your Habsburg rulers who wouldn't stop banging their siblings. So Richard had to deny that he was going to marry his niece, and he actually started setting up some ways for him to get married again because his wife died and his son died.
So
which was
so
unfortunate.
was that like a legit thing? Like he definitely wanted to marry her, or
So here's
was
the
that just
thing.
a rumor?
In the early 1600s, a letter was found from Elizabeth of York to Richard. And it seemed to support the notion that Elizabeth was in love with Richard. It wasn't like a love letter, but there were phrases in it that made people think.
She referred to him with affection.
She did sign it affectionate yours or some equivalent of that. And I keep trying. I've been trying to actually find.
Can't wait to see you tonight, Bae.
So looking forward to our Rumble in the Jungle.
And then a bunch of hand-drawn emojis.
Less than 3. I'm trying to find I really want to find a copy of this letter. And I can't find it. I've read it before, and for some reason I can't find it right now. But
Well, if you find it, bring it up later in the show. If not, we can post it up later.
yes. So
Okay. So in how old was she at this time? I'm guessing
Hold on.
18-ish.
She was born 1466, so she would have been about 20.
Okay,
18.
that's close.
18. So she was 18 years old.
I'm actually going to look her up right now.
Yes, do that. She was very pretty. She was considered very beautiful for her time.
Every time you say that,
You're looking at paintings, though.
that's true.
Not even good paintings. Although, fun fact. So you know how...
She does look pretty.
Okay, fun fact. During her mother's younger years, receding hairlines was very glamorous. Like a big forehead. Jeff would have been gloriously popular.
I
You
would
were
have
just
been
born in
the
the wrong
best of
time,
them
Jeff.
all.
You would have. You would have been the queen.
But
So-
I do have a full head of hair, people, so you know this.
Yeah, no, he's
I'm
got a
not
very...
bald.
Yeah, no, he's got a full head of hair. He's just...
Jeff's got
Really-
some luscious locks.
I just have a large Nicolas Cage forehead.
He does. Jeff's got a very thick head of hair, but he's got a very large forehead. In an attractive way. He styles his
If
hair,
you
right,
can
guys?
visualize that.
That just sounds weird. I'm picturing it in my head, and you sound like...
I'm like a cone head with hair.
So what they did, if you didn't have a big forehead those days, they would shave their hairline back. So like you will see
Dedication.
pictures of these women whose hair doesn't start until like halfway past their head.
Now, is this only men or did women do
Women.
this? Oh my god.
This was
that's
women.
hilarious.
Yeah,
I was visualizing like a bald woman, but like like the hair
No,
like a
here.
monk.
you're gonna love this.
Oh. Okay.
Elizabeth of York's painting, or Elizabeth Woodville's painting, has the really big forehead.
Oh, yeah. I was looking
I'm
that
just
up
visualizing
earlier.
like shave like all the way to like the top middle of the head, and it's just a line.
It is.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah. She kind of looks like Sansa.
She kind of does.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that.
Oh, okay, wait. I just found about the letter. The original letter failed to survive, so this guy's account of what the letter said. This guy was George Buck.
Oh, that
And
sounds like
he-
a trustworthy name. Uncle Buck.
I'm gonna buck you up. And he was a dude in King James's court, so he claimed to see the letter. To be mediator for in the cause. Okay. He claims he saw a letter from Elizabeth to a duke asking him, quote, to be a mediator for her in the cause of the marriage to the king, who was her only joy and the maker in the world, and that she was his heart in thought and in all. And then she intimated that the better half of February was past and that she feared the queen would never die. So the queen wasn't yet dead, and she in this letter claimed, I hope she dies soon because I really want to marry the king. By the way, can you please do what you can about that? But There was no letter actually found, and it hasn't been verified. So that's where a lot of that rumor is. The whole idea of Elizabeth loving him is like 150 years later. Got it?
Get it.
Good.
Got it.
So, after Richard III was defeated in battle, Henry Tudor was like, okay, now I'll marry you. He apparently was reluctant to marry Elizabeth, but it was a very necessary thing. Elizabeth technically had the stronger claim to the throne, and in fact, Henry was claiming the throne through conquest, not through blood. So, Elizabeth could have like taken the crown if she really wanted to, and if she could have gotten like an army to defeat Henry, but that kind of like hindered their relationship in the beginning. Like Henry refused to have Elizabeth crowned at the same time as him because he didn't want the people of England to think that he was only king because of his wife. He wanted them to know that he was their king regardless. Got it?
Okay. Yeah.
So he didn't share power with her. She didn't have much political sway in their marriage. He did have the law that said she was a bastard repealed. So she was legally entitled to the throne. They needed a papal dispensation to get married. I don't know why, but that's just another, like, we've talked about it before about how many papal dispensations were sent out. Like, it's almost like every single royal marriage needed some sort of papal dispensation.
Could that have been just the norm back then? Like it had to happen?
No, I think it was a blood relation thing. Like they were related in the third or second degree or something. That's usually what a papal dispensation is.
You need to go to the Pope
for.
and have him say, "Hey, Jesus thinks it's cool."
It usually goes to the Pope, and the Pope is like, "Okay, we're gonna look the other way. Here's your document."
It's icky, but have at it.
Yeah. So they got married on January 18th of 1486. Their first son Arthur was born in September, so he may have been premature or she may have been pregnant. And that brings me to an aside. So I was asked last week on Facebook if I'd watched The White Queen yet, or The White Princess. And that's...
Yeah, I see a lot of people have been asking us about that.
That's a show on Starz, and it's based off of a Philippa Gregory book. And it's all from these women's point of view. So in the book, spoilers, guys, because it happens in the show as well. So sorry if you don't like this, maybe fast forward to a minute ahead. So in the book, Elizabeth is in Westminster and Henry Tudor comes to England, and he then is like, "Oh, by the way, before I marry you, I'm going to make sure you're fertile." And then he rapes her. And I hate it. And it happens in the show too. And also in the show, there's some other stuff. But I hate that aspect because I'm like, I can't see it happening. Like, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just really don't like that.
I think I read somewhere where like that was changed to where like it kind of gave her more agency. More like she was taking control of that situation.
It does, but it's still rape. So
yeah, it's still no good.
We're about to approach the minute mark. So now on to the rest of the show, though. So the show is, I watched the first episode today. I got access to Starz, so I did watch the first episode, and I kind of liked it. But Elizabeth Woodville is very feisty. I think even one of our fans use that word. She's very feisty in the show. And I think the point is that Elizabeth Woodville is commonly overlooked as just like this meek, pious little do whatever the husband says queen. And I think Philippa Gregory was originally trying to give her more power. And in the show, she definitely has it, but it's very like extreme. So it's good. I mean, I didn't hate it. I kind of liked it. So I'll probably try and watch more if I can.
Okay.
So Arthur Tudor was born. And then Elizabeth.
Oh man, he's gonna do so many great things.
He's gonna have such a long, fulfilling life with a very happy wife and many children.
And his brother's going to be by his side at all times.
But he'll also become a religious man and join the church, and then he'll become a cardinal. So Elizabeth was finally crowned after giving birth in November of 1487. Altogether, she gave birth to 8 children.
Holy crow.
But only 4 survived. There was Arthur, Margaret, Henry, and Mary.
Have we talked about the infant mortality rate back in the day before?
It was high.
Yeah.
There we go. Talked about it. I see. The first thing I read said she gave birth to 6 children. Then another thing I read said she gave birth to 8 children. I know she did have another daughter who died, and I think there might have been a son who died, but I don't know where the 8 came from. Either way, she gave birth to a lot of kids. So
they were just cranking them out.
It's kind of what you had to do. So even though Henry and Elizabeth's marriage started as a had to happen thing, and Henry wasn't really happy about the marriage in the first place, they ended up growing to love one another. They had a very caring, loving relationship, and her death kind of destroyed Henry, not destroyed Henry VII, but really screwed him up. So,
yeah.
However, Elizabeth of York had the mother-in-law from hell. Margaret Beaufort, she's going to be one of the next people we talk about in the near future. Margaret Beaufort was Henry VII's mother. She technically had the claim to the throne, but she passed it on to Henry.
No, why did she technically have the claim?
Because her bloodline was what gave Henry his claim to the throne, not his father's. Interestingly, his father was Edmund Tudor, and he wasn't a royal, and the Tudor above him, the Tudor line is complicated. Just leave it at that. So,
okay.
Margaret Beaufort was exceptionally pious, and it's a really interesting contrast when you think about it. She had Henry when she was 13 years old. The birth destroyed her. That was her first marriage, and her husband actually died in battle before the baby was born. She had the baby at 13 years old, and it was a very difficult birth. And then she had 4 husbands altogether, and she didn't have any more children by any of them. So I'm pretty sure it's either believed or it's fact that she told each consecutive husband, yeah, I'll marry you, but we're not having sex. And they were all like, that's cool. I just want your money, because she was a wealthy heiress. But she was just in control of everything. She was essentially the main royal at court after Henry, after the king. Even though it should have been the queen, Margaret became My Lady the King's mother. That was how you referred to her. You bowed to her like you would to royalty. She set a standard at the palaces that was to be followed for years afterwards. Stuff like confinement, which is when women go into a room that's darkened and lit with fires, and the walls are covered and the windows are covered and all that stuff, for 6 weeks before they give birth. That was Elizabeth. Or that was
I'm sorry.
That was
what?
Margaret Beaufort. She set all those kind of rules, like for every little aspect.
I'm sorry. This is the first I'm hearing of that. What? Why?
Some believe that
like a weird religious thing, or
I don't know. Religious and health. So like, you covered the walls and tapestries. You closed the windows because you didn't want any ill humors getting into the room and infecting the mother. The tapestries were usually religious in term to kind of keep the goodwill flowing. I don't know the exact reason behind every little aspect of it, but I know like men weren't allowed in there. So some of it was decorum, some of it was belief, some of it was health. But Margaret Beaufort established those rules. She established the rules for like baptisms and just every little thing you could think of. She kind of set a standard for. She wrote it down too. So she was like, this is for every generation to follow. And she just kind of got a say over everything. I guess Elizabeth of York kind of gave in to almost everything she asked. And they were usually at ends about some things, and Henry would always be like, no, mom said I have to do this, so he went with mom. However, there was one instance where Elizabeth and Margaret were both on the same side. Elizabeth's daughter Margaret was set to marry the King of Scotland, and they were set to marry, quote unquote, they were set to marry when Margaret was young, and both Elizabeth of York and Margaret Beaufort were not fond of the idea of her going over when she was like 12 or 13. So I think when she didn't go over until she was 15 to get married. And that was because both Elizabeth and Margaret were like, this isn't happening. And Margaret would have a valid reason since she gave birth at 13 and had a harrowing experience. Got that?
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so here's an example of how much Elizabeth and Henry grew to love one another. When they were brought the news that Arthur had died, they were together, and Henry broke down and started sobbing. And Elizabeth stayed strong, and she said, we're still young enough. We can have more children. And then she left him alone, and then she went away and started sobbing so loudly that Henry could hear her. And he went to her and comforted her. So, like, I know that's not, like, I know you'd expect that for a couple these days, but in those days, it was just, like, you didn't really emotionally support one another in that manner. So, it was a really sad time for them.
And how old was Arthur when he died?
15.
Okay.
Yeah. So after Arthur died, she became pregnant again, and she went into confinement in the Tower. The Tower used to be a royal residence. It wasn't always a prison. However, on February 2nd, she gave birth to a daughter named Catherine. The baby died shortly after, and Elizabeth ended up getting an infection, and she died on her birthday. She was 37.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Henry mourned her. He very deeply. And in fact, he became ill and he called for his mother. And that was not normal because Henry never let the court know if he was ill. So that's just another way of showing how much he cared for her. And this was kind of normal, but on the anniversary of her death every year, he had a mass sung, bells were rung, and 100 candles were lit for her.
That's sweet.
So after her death, the Tower was abandoned as a royal residence. I don't know if it's because that's where she died and Henry VII and Henry VIII had issues with that, or if it just so happened to be abandoned after that. But Henry VIII was very, very close to his mother. He loved her very much, and her death, like, destroyed him. Almost, I'd say almost more than Henry VII. So, when Henry learned of the death of a royal he had looked up to in another kingdom, he wrote, "Never since the death of my dearest mother hath there come a more hateful intelligence. It seemed to tear the wound to which time had brought insensibility." So he really loved his mother, and there's a painting or a book excerpt, I think, actually, given to Henry VII, or what is it? There's a painting of a book of mourning being presented to Henry VII, and in the painting, Henry VIII is sobbing on his mother's bed, and it's draped in black. So Henry VIII very much loved his mother. Elizabeth of York was very kind, giving, and charitable. She was intelligent and very beautiful. She didn't have a lot of political influence, and she didn't really get that involved, but she did try and do what she could as a person of power. So here's an example. Jasper Tudor, who's Henry...
And from what you tell me, she didn't seem like somebody with aspirations for that.
No, but she probably witnessed so much awfulness for those who did have aspirations for that. Mm-hmm. So Henry Tudor's uncle Jasper, I guess he was treating a tenant poorly, and instead of Elizabeth going to Henry and saying, "Hey, your uncle's being a douche," she wrote to Jasper, and she said, "Hey, stop being a douche." verbatim. She came up with the word douche nozzle in the 1480.
Thou art being quite the douche nozzle.
The nozzle
Lord
of a
and Lady
douche.
douchebag.
Lord douche.
Another example is her sister Catherine married a man named William Courtenay, and he was imprisoned for treason, and Elizabeth took in his children to care for them because obviously Catherine was not going to be able to do that. And that's just kind of another example of her being a really wonderful person. And yes, they were her nieces and nephews, but they were also the children of a traitor. So that's a big deal. But it's interesting to think about Elizabeth because it's almost like you break her up into two different people, because you think of her before she married Henry and after she married Henry, but you can't really do that because, for example, there was a kid he was really a kid. He showed up in England claiming his name was Perkin Warbeck, and he showed up in England claiming to be Elizabeth's brother Richard, who...
It's funny because that's also the name I have on my fake ID.
Perkin Warbeck, inheritor of England. So Perkin Warbeck showed up and he's like, oh, I'm actually the Queen's brother and I'm the rightful king to the throne. I escaped the tower and I'm the real Richard. And since they hadn't found the bodies of Richard and Edward, it was kind of a big scandal. So like, I think Elizabeth even had her children at that point. So she was faced with like, oh my God, this could be my brother, but also my husband is the king and my child could be the king. What am I doing? So you can't really break her into those two separate eras of her life, the before Henry and the after Henry. As easy as it is to like pick those pieces up and put them in compact individual portions, it doesn't work like that. And I think that's why she's one of the most interesting characters, historical figures that I think of, because she experienced so much with, her father dying and going into sanctuary and possibly being married to Richard III and just all the mayhem she went through during that time, and then finally being married to Henry and falling in love with him. And I just really like Elizabeth Woodville, I think, or Elizabeth of York. I think she's really, really interesting. And
All right.
that's it.
Well, I like that episode, Emily. You piqued my interest with this the life and times of this woman, and she sounds like she was a very, very awesome lady.
She does, and I can see why the show The White Princess is trying to make her more powerful, because she is often overlooked. I guess until historically recently, so it could have been in the last 100 or 200 years, she was considered just as big of a force as Margaret Beaufort or Margaret of Anjou, who had raised an army for her insane husband. And then lately it's fallen to the wayside as like this meek little queen who just did what her husband said. Almost like Catherine of York before the divorce, honestly. But I just like giving these historical figures more life. So I like her.
Good job, Emily.
Thanks.
Gold star for you.
Thank you. I'm gonna put it on my... I don't have a thing to put it on.
We'll find you a thing to put it on, and then you can put it on.
Thank you. Put it on my thing.
Did you have a Henry fact? Or did that come out in the episode?
It was just that Henry was super close to his mother.
Okay.
Not crazy. Elizabeth the First was named after her.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm. So, that's it.
All right.
Any questions?
Not really directly related to her, but I wanted to know what your take was on this. I was thinking of her and Henry's marriage. I was thinking, like, was there like a power couple that was like your top number one power couple of the time, like a king and queen who like were totally loved, they got stuff done, and there weren't too many problems with them. They were just like the best.
Edward III, but that was really because Edward III was not really his wife. I'm trying to think. I mean, really, Henry and Catherine, the early years, Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, the early years, she was first of all, Henry adored Catherine. She was beloved by the kingdom. Henry was the golden prince. They were the power couple until, the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So
The Roaring 20s.
the roaring. Anne Boleyn came in as a flapper. All that booze and jazz and liquor.
Hey, who's that hot dame?
Gee, that mister. Just dance in the background.
I ain't no dame, mister.
What's wrong with the way I talk?
Oh my god, I'm gonna picture Anne Boleyn talking like that forever. Can a girl get a word in edgewise?
Oh my god, now I'm just visualizing like singing the Ring except it's Henry VIII
And he just ends it by beheading everyone.
while doing a dance routine.
Instead of an umbrella while he's singing in the rain, it's an axe. And people are walking by.
I'm beheading in the rain.
I like that.
I just like the idea of
Swinging in the rain because he's swinging the
Ooh,
axe.
very nice.
Yeah.
what's her name? The
Who?
main woman and actress in those in Singing in the Rain.
Debbie
I'm
Reynolds.
just visualizing her as Catherine of Aragon.
Oh, she'd be a perfect Catherine of Aragon. Oh, I miss Debbie
And then,
Reynolds.
Was it Charles? His friend?
The character? Oz.
No.
Cosmo.
No, Henry's friend.
Oh, Charles Brandon. Good
Yeah,
job,
he'd
Jeffrey.
He'd be playing Cosmo.
That'd be a good one. I like that.
Kramer?
That's a
Sorry,
different
I've
one.
never
that's
seen Singing in the Rain.
That's another spin-off that'd be fantastic.
Seinfeld. But with the Tudors. Okay.
Elaine is replaced by every
Jeff.
single wife.
Jeff, audio challenge for you. Take the first episode of Tudors, but add in like a bunch of Seinfeld sound effects and like laugh tracks.
That would be amazing. Can you pretty please do that? Please spend your time editing my podcast and then doing things for me.
And then adding laugh tracks to the episode. My favorite hobby is just adding laugh tracks to anything.
That's what Big Bang Theory does.
Aww.
Don't awe. It's a bad show. You know it is. Sorry, listeners. I'm very opinionated. Not sorry about that.
No, I didn't listen to the Rain episode. I didn't know how you are about opinions on TV shows. No.
So here's the thing. Sometimes I feel bad for shitting on Rain. I don't want to shit on people who like Rain. I don't mean to do that. I just hate the show personally. Like, if you like it, that's cool because it's a historical show, and I like even if it's not a historical show, like what you like. Don't pretend to.
Don't let somebody else influence you and make you try
Yeah.
to like second guess or like don't
Yeah.
get mad at somebody because they don't like something you like.
I just Rain is not my cup of tea, and I don't it's just not my thing, and that's how I feel about Big Bang Theory. I'm not gonna crap on you for liking it.
But you know what, Emily? Our listeners are cool people. They're not like that, and we're not like that with our listeners. We're all cool.
We are all cool.
This is a cool kids club.
It's very, very secretive too. Nobody's allowed in unless invited. I'm just kidding. Please tell your friends about us. What the fuck? Yes. So I'm not shitting on you if you like Rain. Enjoy Rain if you want to watch Rain. I will not watch it though. Same with Big Bang Theory. That's where this all came from. I'm not just picking up on Rain again.
Like what you like, even if it's Rain, but not if it's Big Bang Theory. That's what I think we're getting at.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, man. All right, Emily. So how can our lovely listeners find us?
You can find us on Twitter at Tudor Know Her. I do end up talking to a lot of people on that, and I've really enjoyed it. And I share some random Tudor facts. I mostly retweet a lot of other Tudor accounts I follow, so if you're interested in that. And then those random articles that are like, hey, look what's back in fashion, French hoods. So that's our Twitter, Tudor Know Her. And our Facebook page is where you can find the contest, which is going so well. Well enough that I think I'll want to do more in the future. And the Facebook page is Tudor I Hardly Know Her. And I am a lot more active on that one, sharing jokes, links, other pages.
Replying to comments, messages.
I reply to I don't think I've missed a single comment. Yeah. According to Facebook, I have a 100% response rate and a 28-minute response time.
Nice.
So, and we're still doing the giveaway until, well, this is going out on Wednesday morning. So until the end of the day, you guys have until midnight Eastern Standard Time to enter, and then I'm taking it down, and we're going to announce a winner on Thursday morning. So one more day. Just tell us which tutor you like. Tell your friends if they're all interested in the tutor. Tell them who you like and why. And then you may get a free book about Jane Boleyn, the infamous
And
Lady
if you
Rochford.
don't get the free book, we still recommend that you try to get a copy of this book to read yourself.
I really, really do. It's so good. It's so good. Hey, you know what I noticed? You haven't liked our page.
I don't? How do I not when I'm an admin for it?
I don't know, but I saw a thing and it said invite your friends, and the first person that suggested I invite was you.
Oh, God. I'm a horrible person.
Yes, you are.
So.
This is awkward now. Emily, there's something I should tell you.
Oh, no.
Well, it doesn't help. I have like 3 things liked on my Facebook page.
Yeah, you don't have to like it. Don't worry. I'm in charge of it. I got it. So, anyway, that's it for our social stuff. Oh, rate and review us, please. We like those for the most part.
Yeah.
They're handy.
They are handy. We appreciate them. So, that's it.
And now you know the rest of the tale.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So until then, ladies and gentlemen.
Divorced, beheaded,
Died.
died. Divorced, beheaded,
survived.
survived.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Ciao. Ciao.